Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. This is the 8th installment in a series of talks with my former teacher, James Piorkowski, on his tools for productive practicing, a collection of strategies and techniques you can apply in your practice and study of your instrument to ensure that you are solving problems and achieving your goals. You can download a PDF of the full list of tools on Jim's website, link in the description. Let's get back to it. Next on the list, we have separate voices, lines, layers.
Right.
What's that?
And this is most obvious, right? Because we play a polyphonic instrument and we have these layers going on simultaneously. So there's an axiom that I didn't invent in regarding practice, and it's divide and conquer. And we address that with separate hands, right? What is our left hand doing all by itself? What is our right hand doing? So that's a physical divide. And you understand what's going on, and then you can put them together and have a lot more success. And then musically, we can divide and conquer by separating the melody, and we talked about that in singing, or separate the bass line, we talked about that. Mm-hmm. What if there's something where you have an arpeggio accompaniment and a melody that's sustaining, to really take them apart, because your job at that point is to be an accompanist and a singer on the instrument. If you're playing something like the E minor Bourrée by Bach, originally for lute, I mean, you have basically two voices, and you need to know each layer. The bass line is so good. We talked about that with bass lines, right? Yeah, right. So you know, and if you don't pull that out and just celebrate it, there's no way you can express that, right? So there's a truth that is, if you can't export anything you haven't imported, and so when you're practicing that, you're importing the understanding of that line, and then it's the same thing with the soprano line, and the miracle of it is, when we put the two lines together, or the three lines, depending on what we're playing, maybe four lines, the brain can juggle it. And we can have foreground with a louder line and background with a softer line, and have these two distinct planes of audio going on, which makes the listener, it's easier to distinguish between the two because they're not blurred in the same plane. So the dynamic differences that we can create with foreground and background actually help clarify. The quieter line doesn't become more diminished in clarity. It actually becomes more clear, which is very cool.
I think it's easy for a lot of guitarists, especially less experienced guitarists, to forget that we're playing a polyphonic instrument. You know, I mean, I think something I see a lot in students is, you know, somebody will come to the classical guitar coming from, you know, just like a pop or rock or blues kind of background, and in that world there's this tendency to think of things as like lead and rhythm, and you are doing one or the other, right? But we're doing the whole package, right? So, which, I mean, to me, like, the guitar is a lot like the piano in that sense, you know, where we can play a complete polyphonic texture, but like the way we do it is different, because on the piano it's like accompaniment, melody, but on the guitar it's accompaniment, melody, everything in between, all with the one hand, right? Yeah. You can't articulate the different lines well if you haven't really thought about them yourself.
Right. You know? And, so, you know, as a composer, I'm always struck when I'm revisiting a piece that I wrote. Mm-hmm. It gives me no advantage that I wrote it. I still have to do that. Mm-hmm. I still have to separate things, because as a performer, it's a different role. It's a different task to express what anybody wrote, even if you wrote it, even if I wrote it.
Yeah.
Right? It's so you don't get any free passes away from that understanding. But the other thing that I always find out is that it's such a delight to discover these things. It's like, oh, now I'm excited about sharing this. And if we're not, then why would we share it?
Right.
We want to be enthusiastic about what we discovered and listen to this. And,
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Moving on.
Sure.
Okay. Score perusal. Form and analysis.
Yeah, when we're learning a new piece, this goes back to discover the composer's intent.
Yeah.
And we see 200 measures, 180 measures, whatever the length of the piece is, even if it's a short piece. And you count up all the notes, it just seems like a stream of water coming out of a fire hose, and it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
So to understand the structure of a composition, maybe there's an intro, and then the A theme, and then a B theme, and then maybe A prime, and then a C section. All that stuff really helps us cut up the pizza, if you will, into these slices. And when we're learning the piece, we have to, think of that slice of a pizza as, a separate entity on its own. As it sits on your plate, it would be, but it also is part of the larger pie. Mm-hmm. So doing that analysis, first of all, just gives us an idea of the structure. If we're memorizing, it's super important. I have a chart here somewhere where I have this piece that I was recently learning, and it's not mine. It's Chopin, actually, and it's an arrangement by Roland Diens. And so A prime, B, A prime, and then I'm talking into these categories. I have little indicators of why it's different. Why is A prime different than A? The ending, it's going somewhere else. It's cadencing differently. And so mentally, it gives me a form, and it gives me a pathway to follow. Also, I find out that if I can go, say, just begin at the C section, cold.
Yeah.
That's really good. Or the coda, that's really helpful, because again, we were talking about taking things out of context.
Yeah.
So it's like fashioning that slice. If you're slicing that pizza and you want a really beautiful, clean slice to put on the plate to serve, you want to know it really well in the music. You want to know what that section is about, and how do I express it? Especially if it's a contrasting mood, key, all sorts of textures, differences. And now how do I treat that differently, even though it's part of the pie?
Right. I think of it like understanding the story.
Sure.
I know. When I'm working on a piece, I'm not literally crafting a story exactly, but I have a sense of like, well, okay, what is this? Is this just kind of setting the stage? Is this kind of just exposition stuff? Is this all the rising action? Is this the conflict in the story? Is this the climax of the story? And like in what sections do these things occur? Where's the highest, loudest thing? Mm-hmm. Right. But in a way, it's dividing and conquering again, right?
Exactly.
It's just taking, not thinking of the piece as one big unit. It's got components that make it up in different sections and things. And, it's like understanding sonata form and like a theme and variations and these kinds of things. Understanding how those things work in the kind of classical sense really informs how you would interpret it, Mm-hmm. Now, do you tend to, I guess it depends on the kind of music you're playing, right? But, do you go so far as to start sticking Roman numerals all over the place for identifying
and analyze
harmonies?
The chord progression?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I want to know what the progression is and how it relates to the first section, and where it's going, and and analyzing the chordal harmony gives us a lot of information. When we're going to be playing with dynamics and applying the dynamics, it can almost seem willy-nilly. What are we going to do? What's louder and why?
Yeah.
But the harmony will really give us a lot of information as the harmony becomes more active, I call it, further away from the tonic, more exploring, and modulating, and maybe there's more chromaticism going on. All of those kind of things give me insight as to the possibilities of expression, dynamically especially, and rubato, of course. If you get something like a diminished chord at the end of a phrase and it's suspenseful, you might want to hold it and let it resonate and build suspense, right?
Yeah.
We talk about suspensions in music. Well, what do they do? They create suspense. You don't want to get off of it too soon. So knowing what the function of the chords are is very helpful in expressing it.
You get again, diminished. Yeah.
It dovetails with the composer's intent.
Yeah.
And so many of these tools interlock. But it's another way of thinking about that, and helps us to discover the composer's intent. Right? It's one of the tools that help you form a tool.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you hit a big diminished chord. You don't really want to underplay that. It's. I think in most cases you'd probably want to play that a bit louder than other things. Not I guess not always, but it depends.
Or longer. I mean,
longer, of course.
We can emphasize something with an agogic accent by lengthening, which I use the little rhyme, strengthening by lengthening.
Yeah,
so giving it more time to bloom can be very effective, right? It gives us, it makes us attend to it. So it's not necessarily just volume. It could be a subito piano and longer, and then you get off of it and get the tempo back. So there's so many possibilities to explore.
Yeah.
But if you know that that's a high point, that's a place where you want to have the listener savor it. There are different ways of giving it and serving it. Again, I think of it as, I often have food analogies. And I think of if you had a bowl of, say, chili, and you're taking a spoonful, and maybe every third spoonful there's a rather hot piece of pepper in there,
Right.
You wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want 10 of those in every spoonful.
Right.
You'd want them placed, just in the right proportion.
Yeah.
And so when you get to that third spoonful and you taste it, you're going to stop a little bit, get your attention, right?
Yeah.
And that could be that diminished chord or an augmented chord or something that's secondary dominant, and it's building and moving us away. And so...
Yeah. It is so... It never ceases to amaze me how well food and cooking is analogous to music.
Yeah,
There's always something.
Composition is a recipe. The performer is the chef.
Yeah.
What do I do with this recipe?
Right.
And watching my wife cook, she's got stacks of recipes. She's always going through them, and she'll know intuitively and experientially, that's not a good ingredient right there, or that's too much salt or sugar, or you name it,
Yeah.
And I'm going to alter it. And that's what a performer does.
Yeah.
And how much emphasis, how much time, how much rubato, all of that stuff.
When you're a music student in a university, you have to take semesters of music theory, right? And I think something that is missed a lot is its relevance to the music that you're playing, the music that you're studying and in your private lessons. I remember hearing another student play in performance class. This was in grad school. and I don't remember what the piece was. It was some 19th century, classical romantic piece, and it had a big 5-1 cadence at the end. And he played the 5 chord, the dominant chord, sort of quiet, and then just like wailed on the 1 chord at the end. And I was like, no, like that doesn't sound right, and because it's tension resolution, I mean, I just think it's important to think about those things,
Right. And great composers, the harmony is functional.
Right.
It has a purpose. Mm-hmm. And that's what we have to discover. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's not in the traditional harmonic realm.
Yeah.
But, as Stravinsky pointed out, he said from Bach and earlier, it's all about tension and release. Mm-hmm. And no matter what period of composing someone's making music in, a good composition will have that. Mm-hmm. In varying degrees. And, it's like a drama, it's like theater, it's like a book. You want that build of tension, you want to release it, you're not maybe sure where it's going to go. Maybe it's going to have a funny resolution. Right. Again, we talk about Roland, he's got so many humorous inserts in his compositions, Or sometimes it's quite sad, or you don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
But it is a shift, and I think it's solely based on those two things. And again, it's like food, you combine sweet and sour, salty and sweet, and those things are, they complement each other because they contrast each other. Mm-hmm. Same thing.
Definitely. Thanks for watching. Again, you can get a PDF of Jim's tools on his website, link down below. If you have any thoughts, questions, or experiences you'd like to share related to anything we talked about, please feel free to leave a comment. In the next segment, we'll be talking about exclusively observing each hand, practicing with your eyes closed, and a more advanced application of the separation of voices that we talked about in this episode. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one.